Dandadan is a sci-fi romance comedy slice-of-life supernatural battle shonen, masterfully written and beautifully illustrated by Yukinobu Tatsu, whose picture I cannot fucking find, in which a group of teenagers must use their ghost powers to travel to the Shadow Realm and defeat the villains from Ben 10 in order to save the world. Our two protagonists are Takakura Ken, a high schooler with a devil trigger struggling with Riz deficiency in a never Riz-dependent society, and Ayase Momo, a girl with psychic powers and a huge crush on an old Japanese actor who has the same name as the aforementioned Hyper-Rizlemic, and who I initially confused with another guy who also happens to be the main inspiration behind Amulet Kainu from One Piece. Wait, so you're telling me a teenage girl in the year of our Lord 2021 has a massive crush on an actor from the mid-20th century whose face looks like he's made out of actual concrete? I would normally do some research and ask around to know if this is uncommon, but unfortunately, I don't know any women. So the basic setup is that Earth is actually super mega haunted, which is the only thing stopping aliens from invading. So when our main duo awaken their powers and transform into Mob Psycho 0.0003% and beloved Bakugan character Spectra Phantom respectively, they become a target for all the aliens to come and steal their powers. The breakneck pace at which the starting premise is put in place has become quite common in recent shonen, probably driven by the assumption that the audience is mostly made up of Gen Z members whose stimulus receptors will shrivel up and die if the main character takes more than one episode to become badass. But the rest of the cast is great too, like Ira, who I gaslit myself into thinking was the class president because she's constantly acting like she is. Or Gigi, who's so chill he skipped past being an anime rival and became Takakura's best friend instead. There's even a talking cat, and this one isn't on my back 24/7 about going to bed earlier or cleaning out my dick cheese. Now, what makes this stand out from most other shonen to me is how the whole story flows through this stream of pure imagination. There are no boundaries on what the rules are, yet nothing feels out of place no matter what happens. It's not cartoon logic, but it's not the usual shonen anime logic either. It just works. For example, there's a point in the story where one of the characters gets possessed by an evil spirit, but the spirit will only come out if he comes into contact with a cold liquid. The story doesn't try to explain why it operates this way, and it also doesn't stop in its tracks to solve this one thing before starting the next story arc. The characters just gain one more problem to deal with on top of everything else, and the plot moves forward. The excitement doesn't come from knowing how this world works or why it's the way it is, but rather from seeing how the characters will deal with having the whole situation flipped on their heads every 5 chapters. Aliens are real, ghosts are real, cryptids are real, gilfs are real, but none of it breaks my suspension of disbelief, because the manga gives me no way of knowing how high my belief is being suspended in the first place. You start off thinking the penis stuff is weird, but then they hit you with Pepsi Man like it's an episode of a regular show. Another thing I like is how there's no super secret organization tasked with protecting Earth from magical threats. The heroes are on their own. Usually, in this type of story, as soon as the main guy gets some kind of superpower, a middle manager shows up all like, "You work for us now. Time for exposition." I don't get the appeal of this kind of setup for a fantasy story. You're just taking the character from the real world where they gotta go to class or attend work or whatever, and putting them in a new setting where they essentially do the exact same thing. Except now there's magic and stuff. Like Harry Potter, right? That's supposed to be a fantasy story. Bruh. Your fantasy is going to school! Who the fuck wrote this? Millhouse? Now, one of my favorite features is empty space. You see, the way aliens hide their activities on Earth is by opening up an alternate dimension that copies the space around them without the humans. Which is great for this guy since he gets to theorize harder about the unfathomable logistics of moving rocks and painting weird shit using your imagination. And it's also great for the action since it means the good guys can pull off moves like this, without any actual collateral damage. It also has romance. I honestly like this romance. I'm gonna put it in A tier. In all honesty, I can't really speak from experience when it comes to the romance since I keep my limitless technique active at all times, which prevents any feminine female femizoids of the fair sex from coming near me. But I am a little bit worried that the story is gonna drag this subplot out till the manga ends instead of just letting the two main characters get together already and then moving on with the rest of the plot. It's like every time two characters are about to become a couple, the Space-Time FBI downloads themselves to meet space to make sure that timeline never happens, or worse yet, Booty Cheek Spider-Man comes out of his gooning chamber to kill one of them himself, so the other gets motivated or something. So yeah, I hope this doesn't happen to Dandadan. I give this manga a score of my Sensei Wu card from Ninjago. He's got really good stats.